Hello there, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Foolproof Case Acceptance in Your Practice. I'm really excited about our webinar tonight. This is one of my favorite topics, something I've been teaching for a long time, although continually tweaking it and changing it and making it better, I hope. So I'm so glad that you took some time out of your evening to join me tonight. I am Dr. Richard Maddow. I'm co-founder of the Maddow Center for Dental Practice Success. I'm a real dentist, just like you, or maybe you're a team member, but in any case, I'm a real dentist. Have been helping, coaching, writing, blogging, presenting, doing seminars, all those things for over 30 years, and it's been so much fun. And these webinars, of course, when the pandemic started last year, we started doing a slew of webinars, and it looks like live meetings, at least some live meetings are opening up. Again, I've already spoken at a few, but we decided to keep doing webinars because let's face it, there might not be a live meeting near you. Maybe yours is still on hold. Maybe you don't live anywhere near where there are live meetings for whatever reason, but this is kind of the great equalizer. It's a way where anybody across the world can come join us on these webinars. And although most of our attendees are from North America, we actually deal with people from all over the world. So thanks so much for being here. Again, I'm Dr. Richard Maddow, and we are going to talk about foolproof case acceptance in your practice. Case acceptance is one of those topics where I know this used to happen to me. You go to the local study club meeting and everybody would be chatting about, about all kinds of stuff about their practices. And then the topic would come up like, well, what's your case acceptance percentage? And I'm convinced that nobody ever knew. People would be saying things like 80%, 85%, 90%, oh, well over 50%. How do they even know? But I can tell you that when we do our practice analysis for practices, we can actually tell in most cases pretty accurately your case acceptance percentage. And I can tell you in just about every case, it's lower than the doctor thinks. But hopefully after tonight, we're going to take care of all of that because let's face it, we love new patients, but if all the treatment that you've diagnosed and recommended over the last few years was actually completed, you'd be so busy, your head would be spinning. You wouldn't know which end was up. You'd be working 24 hours per day, 8 days a week, because we diagnose so much treatment. And then when you look back at the whole deal and do an analysis of your charts, so much of it is untreated. And why is that? Well, one of the reasons might be because they left your practice and got it done somewhere else. And that's one of the main things we're going to focus on tonight. So again, welcome to Foolproof, easy for me to say, case acceptance in your practice. I know it's 8 p.m. here on the East Coast. I'm actually in my home right now in downtown Baltimore, Maryland. In a few seconds, I'm going to ask you where you are because we've got a little chat function. You might want to practice using that. There are two functions. There's the chat and there's the Q&A. So I'm going to ask that you use the chat function. And when you go in the chat function, you'll have a choice of addressing just the host and the panelists, but that's not good. The other one says everyone. So if you could change your chat clicker on the drop-down menu to everyone. On this slide, it says panelists and attendees, but I think for most of you, we'll say everyone. And give us a little hello. Tell us where you're from. Whatever you want to do. I just want to make sure that people are on, you can hear, you can see, and all those great things. There we go. Okay, we've got Bob, Trisha's from Chesapeake, Virginia. Oh, Traverse City, Michigan. Bryn Mawr, PA. Oh, I know you, David Stahl, right down the street from me. Atlanta, Texas, hot Atlanta, Kansas. Sean Jensen, how's it going, Sean? Good to see a lot of old friends on here. Well, now it's going so fast. That's what I like. So I can't say hi to everybody, but a lot of old friends and a lot of people. Maybe this is your Michael O.B. from Auburn or War Eagle. Again, great to see some old friends. And I know for many people, this is your first Maddow Center webinar. If it's your first Maddow Center webinar, just real quickly, Maddow Center was founded in, I think, 1989 or something by me and my brother Dave, Dr. David Maddow. We're both dentists. And for all these years, along with our practices, we've been speaking, writing, blogging, teaching, coaching, all those great things. So welcome to old friends and new friends. It's great, great, great to have you here. New Hampshire. Oh, Rick, hey, how's it going, Rick? So those of you who have been to one of our webinars or have seen me speak know that many, many, many times I like to start with one quick tip. It might not have anything to do with the topic at hand, but it's a quick tip that can either earn you money or save you money. Now, this quick tip is something that we do at the Maddow Center. We've recommended to thousands of dental practices across the country, and it makes it so you can save money every single month. And that is getting you to stop paying an overage percentage for your credit card processing. As you know, most patients pay with credit cards. And when they do, when they whip out that credit card, sure, you've got to pay a percentage to Visa, Amex, MasterCard, whatever, but you're also paying a percentage to your credit card processing company, whether it's your bank or an actual credit card processing company, you are paying a percentage. And that adds up like crazy. But we learned a couple of years ago that you don't have to pay an overage percentage for your credit card processing. You can just pay one tiny, small, fixed monthly fee. And we do that with a company called Stacks. It's an all-in-one payment platform. They have a platform that's specifically for dental practices. And besides the incredible tech that goes into it and the beautiful interfaces and the way it works seamlessly with your practice, and you can generate all kinds of great reports, that stuff's just icing on the cake. The main draw, for me anyway, is that you save money every single month with Stacks. It used to be called Fat Merchant. If you've heard me talk about this before and you're a little confused, they're growing, they added a lot more services. They decided to change their name to Stacks. So I'm now calling it Stacks by Fat Merchant. Again, no overage percentage, just a low flat monthly fee. US News and World Report ranked them the best credit card processor. They said, oh, Dr. Blazer, you're from Orlando. Oh, I got your town wrong. You're from California. Well, welcome. US News and World Report said they have the lowest transaction fees, 24/7 customer support, a cost-saving solution. Yes, as you can tell, I love Stacks, and you should too. So just to find out more and get started, go to Madow.com/save, Madow.com/SAVE. And I hope I'm right, I'm pretty sure I'm right, they're having a special right now where your first month of processing is just $5. So I don't know, what are you going to do with all the money you save? I'll tell you a secret. I just bought a new car with all the money that we saved at the Madow Center. But it's true, from using Stacks. So check it out, Madow.com/save. And the best thing is you go there, you give them some information, you chit chat. They'll ask you for some data from your practice. They'll let you know if you'll save money every month. And if you won't, they'll say, hey, great to meet you, doc, but this might not be a good fit for you, although that rarely happens. If it's a good fit, it goes on autopilot. There's one call, you do nothing, you save money every month like crazy. Maybe you can get a new car too. I hope so, because you absolutely will do great. Go to Madow.com/SAVE. Or if you're one of those people that likes to use the telephone, we got a number set up. It's just for their dental clients. And there you see it, 844-860-9951. So check it out, just like we do at the Madow Center. You can use Stacks in your practice. Put it on autopilot, save money every single month. Absolutely one of the best moves we ever made. I love getting free money every month where you don't have to do anything. That's the best. It's kind of like somebody that writes a song and it gets played on the radio all the time and they just sit at their mailbox and get paid every month. They get a check. It's called mailbox money. And that's how I feel with Stacks. I've written a lot of songs, but I'm not getting checks in my mailbox every month for my songwriting, but I am saving money every month by using Stacks. So definitely check it out. Okay, once again, if you want to chat, I see most of you have figured that out. Some of you are still doing hosts and panelists, but please don't do that. Address your comments to everyone. When you go, there's a little drop-down menu. You can address your comments to everyone. And if you want to make a comment, ask a question sometime during the webinar, I can't promise that I'll be able to get to it. Sometimes it's tough during the webinar because, the teaching gets in a flow, so to speak. But probably at the end, we'll have time for some Q&A, or maybe we'll stop the flow and see what's going on. The point is, please feel free to use the chat box for a question, a comment, anything you like. Okay, so let's start talking about the topic at hand: treatment planning, case acceptance, foolproof case acceptance in your practice. Wow, how can we do it? Well, let's talk about treatment planning and presenting treatment. It makes us feel like used car salespeople, doesn't it? And I think that's one of the reasons that dentists just don't like it. And look, when you don't like doing something, you're never going to get the results you want. If you can approach something with enthusiasm and you like doing it, of course you're going to get better results. But presenting treatment, it makes us feel like used car salesmen. Nothing against the fine used car salesmen of the world. I'm sure there's some great ones out there, but you know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. Presenting treatment makes us feel like used car salespeople. Why is that? Well, first of all, when you're buying a used car, they got to pressure you to say yes before you walk off the lot. I mean, they know it's part of their, and nothing wrong with them. This is the way they have to do it, because they know if you go and you look at a used car and you test drive it and you leave without making some kind of commitment towards that car, chances are you're not going to purchase it. So we feel the same pressure. And this is one of the main themes I'm going to be talking about this evening, is that as dentists, or maybe some people on here are treatment coordinators or financial presenters, whatever your role in the office also involves presenting treatment. We feel the need to get a patient to say yes, maybe to a large treatment plan on the same day that we present treatment to them. Or maybe we're one of those practices that brings our patients back for the big fancy schmancy show, the dog and pony show, and we want them to say yes right then and there. And we feel like if they didn't say yes, we're a failure. And because of that, sometimes we pressure them a little too much and we scare them away. And just like that person walking off the used car lot, if the salesman pressures them too much, you'll never see them again. So high pressure treatment plan presentations do not work. I don't care what you learned in that weekend boot camp, they do not work. And if you've been around enough and you've tried this enough, you know that's a fact. A formal treatment plan presentation, to many people, it's kind of like proposing marriage on the first date. Think about why a new patient comes in. Sure, and I'll say this a few times during tonight's webinar, every now and then, it's pretty rare, certainly in my practice it was, depending on your demographics, it's pretty rare that a patient calls me and says, I know I need a ton of work. As a matter of fact, I'm guessing it's $20,000 and I want to pay in cash and I want to get it done as quickly as possible. I mean, that might be an exaggeration, but every now and then something like that happens, and it's great when it does. But typically, a patient, even if they need a large amount of dental treatment, they call your office because they're having some pain, they chipped a tooth, they're overdue for a cleaning, they got new insurance, they moved to a new town, whatever the reason, those are the typical reasons why a new patient comes in. And then they might need a ton of treatment. And then what do? We propose marriage on the first date. That's not how it works. You're going to get slapped a lot, as they say. So that's what these formal treatment plan presentations feel like. They feel like that to us, and they feel like that to the patient. We'd love to get our patients healthy. There's no better feeling. I know one of our coaches, Betty Hayden, always says, healthy patients, healthy practice. And it's so true. We love to get our patients healthy, but we hate to sell because it makes us feel like that guy behind me in the plaid jacket. So I want to just give an example, kind of a totally non-dental example. And again, it's a crazy situation I made up. But the way that we've been taught to present treatment, and just like you have, I've taken so many of these treatment plan presentation boot camps. I've read articles. I've seen seminars. I know some of my fellow speakers talk about this high-end treatment plan presentation stuff, and I am not a fan. And I'll tell you why. Because the way that we have been taught to present treatment goes against human nature. Now, as I said, I'm going to give you this crazy made-up scenario, but it's going to let you know what a patient feels like when we do treatment planning the typical way. Okay, let's say that you are on vacation to New York City. Wow, it's so great living in Baltimore. It's just a 2.5-hour train ride. We hop on the train, we're in Midtown Manhattan in 2.5 hours. It's really nice. But I know for many people, it's a much longer trip. So you're there, you're seeing a Broadway show, you're having some great dining, you're going to a comedy club, all the fun things that we love to do in New York City. And of course, when you're in New York City, a lot of people love shopping. They love shopping. So let's say you're walking down Fifth Avenue and you're seeing all these cool stores, and then boom, you land, boom, wrong hand, boom, you land right in front of the world famous Saks Fifth Avenue. Their landmark Fifth Avenue store, the one that started the whole deal. And you think, I'm in New York, I'm on Fifth Avenue, I got to go into Saks Fifth Avenue. So you go in and you go not just to the floor where they sell the regular clothes, like the jeans and the shirts, but the really fancy designer floor. Okay, so you're on that fancy designer floor in Saks Fifth Avenue, and you're thinking, I'm not going to buy any clothes here. That's ridiculous. This is one of the most expensive stores. But then you see this shirt and you think, just for fun, just for S&G, I'm going to try this shirt on. So you try the shirt on and you're looking at it, not this one, but so you're looking at it and it looks really nice and you're feeling the material, and then boom, snap, you come back down to earth and you say, I better look at the price tag, because I'm not just in Saks Fifth Avenue, I'm in the Saks Fifth Avenue in New York City. And the sales tax alone is going to kill me. So you look at the price tag and you see this shirt is $800. And you think that is totally nuts. There's no way in the world I'm paying $800 for a shirt. So you walk back to the dressing room to take it off. And as you're walking back to the dressing room, you walk past that three-way mirror, you know, the one that they have rigged up to make everybody look great. And you see yourself in that mirror and you say, wow, this shirt really does look good. And the material and the fit and the color, and you talk yourself into buying it, even though you would never do that. You could buy 10 shirts for $800, you know, where you normally shop, but you think, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm in Saks Avenue, NYC. I'm going to buy the shirt. So you take the shirt up to the clerk and you say, I'd like to buy the shirt, please. And they look at you and they say, oh, no, 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 no. You cannot purchase this shirt unless you buy your next 8 years worth of clothing here. That'll be $12,500, yes or no. Well, that's ridiculous. That's like the stupidest situation I've ever heard. That would never happen. Never, ever, ever. They'd gladly sell you that shirt. But what does that new patient feel like when they call your office because they're having a little pain in one tooth? They lost a filling, they chipped a tooth, they're overdue for a cleaning, they got new insurance, they just moved into your town and they think everything's fine. And they come into your office and on their first or second visit, you tell them they need $12,000 worth of treatment. That's what they feel like. And many times they run away screaming, just like you would run away screaming from that clothing store if they tried to pull this on you. It goes against human nature. It's completely against everything that makes us feel good, that makes us trust a dental practice, that makes us want to be loyal to a dental practice. The way we've been taught the treatment plan, in my opinion, goes against human nature. So let's not do it anymore. When we present treatment the way that we've been taught in so many of these courses, we are ignoring the obvious secret. What's the obvious secret? Anybody know what the obvious secret is? Has anybody read the book, The Obvious Secret by Dr. Earl E. Stepp? Write a comment to everyone. Just put a yes in there if you have read the book, The Obvious. I'm just curious if anybody on this has read it. Well, if you haven't, there's probably a reason. This book is old, older than the hills. I think it was, okay, we got a yes there. Super cool. I think this book was written, a couple of yeses, fantastic. More yeses, great, great. Well, those people who are answering yes, you know exactly what I'm going to say, because this book was written, I think either in the late 60s or the early 70s. It's an old book. When I finished my residency in 1985, I did my residency at Mount Sinai Medical Center in Miami Beach, Florida. I moved back up to my hometown of Baltimore and got a job as an associate. And this associateship sucked. The dentist was just nasty. But the best thing he ever did for me was give me his old copy of The Obvious Secret. Now, this was in 1985, and this was already an antiquated book. And he just said, read this book, you'll learn a lot. And, you know, in one way, the book is so old, it's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, he's talking about doing amalgams and all this, you know, old school stuff. But then he also gives us fees. I think an extraction was like $6. Dr. Bell said it's from 1972. Okay, that makes sense. So he gives us fees, and you just look at him and laugh. Like, and he was from, I think, Athens, Texas, which is, I guess, a small town in Texas. So, you know, the fees will be even lower than those of us who practice in larger cities. You know, $6 for an extraction, $4 for an amalgam. I don't know, it was just crazy, crazy, crazy. But once you get beyond that, the principles, the human relation principles that Dr. E. Stepp wrote about in The Obvious Secret are absolutely timeless and absolutely priceless. And I'm not going to synopsize the whole book right now, but he goes through all these different scenarios, and he goes through what he calls the 5 truths of human nature. And he learned these 5 truths and he lived them, but he still wasn't getting patients to say yes to treatment as much as he could. And if you can get your hands on a copy of this book, I don't know if you can buy it like used online, or I doubt it's on Amazon. We actually had a bunch of them printed up at the Maddow Center years ago. I don't know if we have any left, but if you can find it, check it out. But he goes through all this and said it wasn't working until he figured out the obvious secret. Now, I'm going to tell you Dr. Earl E. Stepp's obvious secret, but even more, well, I'll humbly say, even more importantly than that, after I tell you his obvious secret, I'm going to tell you Dr. Rich's obvious secret, which I think is even more important to your treatment plan success. So Dr. Earl E. Stepp's obvious secret was, and still is, when people are stressed, they stop learning. And so many things we do in the dental practice stress them out. You know, the patients are stressed out to begin with. I mean, let's face it, we all know they don't want to be there. They're worried about so many things. They're worried about pain. They're worried about cost. They're worried about comfort, all these different things. So people are stressed out enough when they come to the dental practice. And then we're going to present them with this huge laundry list of treatment all at once, and they had no idea they needed it. That stresses people out like crazy, and they just shut off. You know, it's funny. I talk to orthodontists from time to time, and so many orthodontists have told me something like this. Like they say, when they're presenting a case, and I'm talking about for a kid, so they're presenting it to the mom or the dad, or maybe the mom and the dad together. Let's just say the case fee is $6,000. They're worried about when they're going to present the fee, because they say if they wait till the end, they know the whole time the mom or dad are just thinking, how much is this going to be? I know what he's leading up to. I know what she's leading up to. This is going to be a fortune. I can't afford it. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Tell me, get it over with. But they're talking about the treatment and how the smile's going to look, and showing, you know, pictures and blah, 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 and talking to the kid, all these things. And then at the end, and then the person's all stressed out because the whole time they've been thinking, oh, how much is it going to be? So then they try presenting the fee at the beginning, and they say, well, it's going to be $6,000. Then the whole time the parents are just there thinking $6,000, $6,000, and they're not even listening. So when people are stressed, they stop learning. But unlike orthodontists, I'm guessing most of us are GPs on here, we don't have to do it that way. So that's Dr. Earl Estep's obvious secret. When people are stressed, they stop learning. Now here is Dr. Rich's, that's me. Here's my obvious secret. And that is, it's not about the patient saying yes to the treatment. It's about the patient saying yes to the practice. I'm going to repeat this about 10 times like it's a mantra, because I want everybody watching this to burn this into their heads and never let it out. Never let it out. And I wish the people who taught those fancy pants case acceptance seminars would learn this. It's not about the patient saying yes to the treatment. It's about the patient saying yes to the practice. As a matter of fact, that's not good enough. Let's get it in bigger print. If all you care about is the patient saying yes to the treatment, you're going to put so much pressure on them that chances are they're going to say no. But if all you care about is the patient saying yes to the practice, you're much cooler, you're much calmer, you're not stressed out, the patient's not stressed out. You're not worried about when, exactly when they're going to say yes and put that treatment on the schedule. You're worried about, where I use the term worried in kind of a general term because you're not really worried. You're thinking about, what are we going to do to get this patient to love our practice? Not to pressure them into saying yes to treatment. And if you saw our prior webinars on ways to create a memorable patient experience in your office and a bunch of other things we did like that, you're on the way to doing this. Having the patient know, and again, we can't get into this evening, but we've got great resources online, and maybe we'll do more webinars, et cetera, et cetera. You've got to do everything you can to let that patient know that your practice is the standout. Your practice is the practice where they will feel the most comfortable. Your practice is the practice where you're going to know their name when they walk in, where the doctor's going to call them at night to see how they're doing, where you're going to give the most painless injection in the history of dentistry, where you're going to make sure they're comfortable with all these things. And I can list 100 of them, but that's not the purpose of this webinar tonight. But if we stop worrying about the patient saying yes to a high pressure treatment plan and concentrate on them saying yes to your practice, your treatment plan percentage will go way, 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 way up. I promise. So this is obvious secret number 2. And as I said, please, please, please burn this into your being. Make it part of everything you do at your practice. Talk about this at your next team meeting. Please get your team members to understand that everything you do, and this goes for new patients and current patients, because patients leave or they go into that black hole or through the back door, whatever you want to call it, where we never slip through the cracks. There are a million terms for this because it happens so often. Kind of like they say the Inuits have 85 terms for snow or something like that. We've got 85 terms for patients that we never see again, unfortunately, because we need to use it so often. So don't let this happen in your practice. Have a team meeting and talk about what are all the things, and make a list of them and live them and learn them. What are all the things we could do to make our patients love our practice? And you better believe that running on time is one of those things. I can't stand running late. Okay, so those are the 2 obvious secrets. When people are stressed, they stop learning. And it's not about the patient saying yes to the treatment. It's about the patient saying yes to the practice. So now let's go into a little more detail and figure out how we can work this into our treatment plan presentation that's going to be stress free. Stress-free for the dentist too. I mean, geez, they say that they can see us sweat. And I know so many of us, and I used to be this way too, are stressed out when we're presenting treatment to a patient, and they can tell. And that not only makes everybody uncomfortable, but it makes the chances that they say no a lot greater. So let's figure out how we can do all these things. The rest of the obvious secrets to case acceptance. So one is the biggest mistake we make during our exams. And this is something granted I've talked about in the last, maybe, I don't know, a few of the last few webinars, just because it had to be in context with what I was teaching on those as well. So maybe some of you know what I'm talking about. The biggest mistake we make during exams. What needs to be discussed first when a patient needs a payment? Thinking about payments already. What needs to be discussed first when we're presenting treatment to a patient? Financing shouldn't even be part of the equation. And then my favorite part, the 90-second, $15,000 treatment plan. Yes, it can be done. Okay, so let's talk about all that stuff. First, I just want to let you know that the Mato Center Quick Start is back. What is the Mato Center Quick Start? Well, as most of you probably know, we do full-blown coaching for practices all across the US and some in Canada as well. We have an incredible relationship with our coaching clients, and we work with them and improve their practices and make dentistry more fun, improve the dentist's income, improve the team's income, everything. Better treatment for the patients. We do so many different things when we work with. Sylvia's raising her hand. So, I don't know if you see where it says Sylvia Carlin on top there. Sylvia is she runs everything at the Mato Center, and she's kind of monitoring our webinar, but she just put her little hand raise thing up there. That was cool. Anyway, she took it down. So the Mato Center Quick Start is back. So where was I? Got distracted by the raising of the hands. Anyway, yeah, we have great coaching relationships with so many fantastic practices across the country. But when the pandemic started, a lot of practices didn't want to just jump headfirst into the pool and become a coaching client. They wanted to more dip their toe in the water. And we totally understood, because let's face it was a crazy time. And we did something called Quick Start. And we only offered it to a few people. It filled up very quickly, and then we stopped doing it. But we decided to try it again because it was so successful. And Quick Start is where we work with you on a limited basis for about 2 months. And we'll still do our whole data analysis. And typically we'll pick maybe 3 big things in your practice that we feel really need to be worked on right away. Whatever, I mean, it could be anything. It could be treatment plan acceptance. It could be your perio program. It could be you've got 1,000 patients who have come in and left through the back door or fell through the cracks, and we need to get a great system to get all of those people back in. It could be telephone techniques, front desk. It could be anything. It could be anything. So we'll pick 2 or 3 things that we think are the most crucial, and we'll really work on those for 2 months and get everything running. And usually, just the improvements you'll make in those 2 or 3 categories will make an incredible difference in your practice. So again, Quick Start is back. It's a 2-month coaching relationship. It's very inexpensive and cost effective. Now, full disclosure, we're going to do the absolute best we can, because look, my hope is that if you do the Quick Start and you're with us for 2 months, that you'll become a full-term coaching client. I'll readily admit that. We would love it if that happens. But there's no obligation to, and there's no pressure to. So it's really a great way to dip your toe in the water and find out how we can help your practice. Not just how we can help, but we actually will help your practice do many great things with the Quick Start. So if you want to find out more, you can go to mato.com/quickstart, or you can call our number, 800-258-0060. Now I'm going to just disappear behind the Quick Start curtain. But please, take advantage of it. It's a really great program. If you've ever been wondering how we can help your practice, what you need help with the most, then please check us out at Quick Start. Lynn, didn't know this included commercials. Well, this isn't a commercial. It's going to help you, but hey, what can I say? It's a free webinar. You got to sit through a commercial, but this is the kind of commercial that will absolutely help your practice. So please take advantage of it. Okay, now let's talk about the rest of the obvious secrets towards treatment plan acceptance. Now, warning, I feel the need to say this. What I'm about to teach will not apply to every practice. Now, if you're the kind of practice that operates in a very high-end demographic, and you're maybe what some might call an occlusion-based practice, Spear, Dawson, Pankey, and I know, so many people take advantage of those fantastic educational institutions, But then some practices, like every patient they see is a full mouth rehab or a reconstruction or blah, blah, blah. If you're one of those types of practices, some of these things, or maybe even all of those things, may not apply to you, but they will anyway. It's still worth your while to learn them. But I'm just saying most practices, I know my practice certainly was, most practices that we work with also have the whole range of patients. Yes, you've got some patients that you call cosmetic dentistry patients. Yes, you've got some full mouth rehab patients, some implant patients, but most patients are just normal dental patients. They need scaling a root plane, they need a couple implants, they need some crowns, they need some endos, those kinds of patients. The patients that make the world go round. And this absolutely applies to those types of patients, which most practices are certainly seeing. So let's talk about the rest of the obvious secrets. Okay. I already went through this, so I'll just say it real quickly. It's not about dental IQ, which is, I can't stand that term. Oh, I wish my patients would have a higher dental IQ. Well, why don't you just administer a dental IQ test and then you'll know for sure. I think that's really the craziest thing. I mean, they come to you for you to be their dentist. Your patients don't need a high, there's no such thing as a high dental IQ anyway. But it's like when you call the plumber, do they hope you have a high plumber IQ? No. I hope my patients don't know anything. It's your plumber doesn't care much you know about plumbing. You want them to fix the clog in your sink, and they fix it. It's all about loyalty and trust. Again, it's all about loyalty and trust. It's all about making sure that they're not saying yes to treatment specifically that day, but they're saying yes to your practice. So, okay, let's get on with it. Now, I alluded to this before. There's something I'm going to teach tonight that I've taught on probably the last few webinars. I find myself teaching this all the time because I think it's so important. So if you've heard it a couple times before, please bear with me or listen again because you'll still learn something. But this is it all starts, I think, well, it doesn't all start with this, but many times case acceptance really revolves around, believe it or not, the initial exam that we do on our patients. And this can be done if you haven't started doing the talk-over technique yet. You do it on your recall patients too. You do it on every single patient. It's the talk-over technique is just a different way. Now, I'm not talking about the way that you hold your Explorer or your Perio probe or interpret your radiographs or anything like that. I'm talking about the little dialogue that happens between the dentist and the dental assistant when you're charting your patients. And it's so funny. I just read an article, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. And this person was saying that the goal during the exam is to use as much complicated lingo as possible and obfuscate the patient completely so they're totally confused. And then they start asking you questions. I thought that was some of the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. Why would you ever want to intentionally obfuscate the patient and use, and confuse them? That made no sense to me. The patient's part of this process. So the talk-over technique during patient exams, what does that mean? It means that during your exams, now, of course, we need to use our dental lingo so we can get an exacting data collection for what the patient presents with. But we also want the patient during the exam to start getting these little hints and tips that, wow, maybe I do need more than just, I called because this one tooth is chipped, or I called because I lost a filling, or I called because I'm overdue for cleaning, but maybe I do need a little more treatment than I thought. And this is the first step without us even telling the patient. It's part of our exam process. So what this means is that as much as we can, we're going to use real life words that a 7th grader would understand. For example, you're doing the exam. Now, what does a patient typically hear? Tooth number 3, MOD, amalgam, lingual cosp fracture. And nothing wrong with that. We need to use those words to do an accurate charting. But what if instead we also added things like this? Tooth number 3, the upper right first molar, has a large 3-surface metal and mercury filling. It looks like it's really old. Takes up about 80% of the tooth surface. And I'm feeling it with the instrument, and it feels like there's a little gap between the tooth and the filling. And I can feel some decay and bacteria under there where the tooth used to meet the filling. Think about that. I didn't say a word that a 7th grader couldn't understand, but now this patient knows, wow, I've got a big old ugly metal mercury filling that takes up the large majority of my tooth, and it's broken and it doesn't meet the tooth anymore. And there's decay and bacteria under this. We haven't said a word to the patient. This is just our exam, but the patient knows their wheels are spinning. They're hearing that there are a lot of things going on here that they will need to know about. that they want to ask you about. What's going on there? Now, how about the perio exam? It's crazy. When we work with practices, we find that there's so little perio treatment going on. And this really bothers me because, look, we all know that a large majority of adults have some form of periodontal disease. But in most practices, the percentage of perio treatment going on is teensy tiny. And one of the reasons is, I think we're afraid to talk to our patients about perio treatment, but also, maybe more importantly, we don't do what it takes to get the patient curious and inquisitive and wanting periodontal therapy. So if we use the talk-over technique during our patient exams, our patients actually will want and ask for periodontal. No, they're not going to say, "Can I have periodontal therapy?" But they're going to say, "What's going on with my gums?" And this is how you do the talk-over technique during our perio exam. What's a patient typically hear during a perio exam? What does it sound like to them? I'll tell you what it sounds like to them. It sounds like this. It sounds like 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. 3, 3, 5, good one. 3. What does that mean to them? It means nothing. So let's let them in on the lingo. Before we do our perio exam, we tell them, okay, now we are going to check your gums to see if they're healthy. We're going to be checking for infection and inflammation. Now, don't just say that. Let them know why. Say, we're going to be checking for inflammation and infection in your gums because you might not know this, but most adult teeth that are lost because of gum disease, because of inflammation and infection in the gums. Everybody thinks it's due to cavities or accidents or things like that, but more adults lose their teeth to gum problems than to anything else. And this is why we really pay close attention when we examine your gums. Now, we use a little instrument. It's like a tiny little ruler, and it's measured in millimeters. So you're going to hear us say numbers, 2, 3, 4, and that tells us. Now, also remember, everything I'm saying can be understood by a 7th grader. It's in numbers, and that's going to tell us how tightly your gums are attached to your teeth. This is simplifying it, but it still is accurate and it still makes sense. It's going to tell us how tightly your gums are attached to your teeth. So if you hear a 2 or a 3, that's usually a really good sign. That typically means your gums are healthy. If you start hearing higher numbers like 4 or 5, that's a really good sign that your gums are inflamed or infected, and we'll really be concerned about that area. And if you hear us say the letter B, that means, now you probably won't feel this, you might feel just a tiny little bit, but that means that when the instrument touches your gums, we saw a little bit of bleeding. So now, whoo, their eyes are wide open, and you're doing the perio exam, and they hear 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 5, 4, 5B, boom, they know. I like that. Boom, they know my gums are infected and inflamed and they're bleeding a little bit. So using the talk over technique is the most powerful thing you can do in your exam, because we are kind of pre-telling, we're giving them like a built-in opinion here. Your mouth is a mess. It's a total disaster. So use the talk over technique during patient exams. Okay, so we've done that. And now where do we go from there? Okay, let's put first things first. The chief complaint. This is a term that, I mean, I kind of stopped using it when I graduated dental school. Maybe I think in my residency I used the term, but I kind of stopped using this term, the chief complaint. But every patient that comes into our practice comes in with a chief complaint. And I already reviewed them several times. Something like, I've got a toothache. I think I chipped a tooth. I think I lost a filling. I'm overdue for cleaning, whatever. Those are the patient's chief complaints. The beauty of the chief complaint is that usually, I'd say 95% of the time, that's going to be the first thing that you treat anyway. So the patient is it's kind of like if your car breaks down and you open the hood and there's a big sign saying, look at this first, look at this first. It's the same thing with the chief complaint. The patient's telling us what should be treated first. And the beauty of it is they're usually right. So if a patient has a toothache, obviously we're going to treat that first. If a patient says, I think I lost a filling, well, you know what that means. They've got a hole in their tooth the size of Montana. We're probably going to treat that first. So we did the exam using the talk over technique. Now we're going to sit the patient up and start talking to them about their treatment. But instead of doing that whole list, $15,000, yes or no, working against you, I swear, I took this treatment plan course one time. And they said, they taught you to do this whole fancy pants treatment plan presentation and throw this list in front of the patient and you say $15,000, yes or no. And then everything the patient responded with, they would have a comeback for you. Like, well, if the patient says this, you say that, like this flow chart. Then if the patient says this, you say that. Then if they say this, you say that. And then eventually, like, looking them right in the eye and they're saying, isn't this the kind of dentistry you want? Is there any reason you're not going to say yes to this today? It's like, that is the most unnatural way. And I paid for this course. I should have gotten my money back. Jeez, this is a long time ago. Should have gotten my money back. So that's high pressure. So let's put first things first and talk about the chief complaint. So you did this whole exam, you did the talk over technique, patient knows they need a ton of treatment. They know that more adults lose teeth because of gum disease than any other reason. They know all this. We know this. Doctor, we know this. So they know this stuff already. So now we address the chief complaint. Well, now when you called to make this appointment and when you came in today, you told us that you thought that you lost a filling on the upper right. And you absolutely did. As a matter of fact, it looked like there was a large old silver mercury filling in there. There's still kind of bits and pieces of it in there. And the tooth is really broken down. And there's decay and bacteria around where the filling used to be and where the tooth meets what's left of the filling. I mean, we're painting, and hopefully you've got your intraoral camera. You can show them a picture blown up this big of that big fugly tooth. And wow, they know something needs to be done, right? So now we're going to talk about the chief complaint. Again, still using plain English that a 7th grader would understand. The way that we treat this is called a core and a crown. So first we remove any remnants of the old filling, and then we remove any bacteria and decay, and everything that's left is going to be healthy tooth. Now, there might not be a whole lot of it left, but our goal is that everything is left is healthy. And then a core is like putting a big filling in. It actually bonds to your tooth, but the tooth is way too weak to hold a filling. So this kind of serves as a base. You see what I'm saying? I'm explaining the core and the crown, and everything I'm saying puts things in simple terms they understand. Okay, so now we've got them excited about the core and the crown. They came in for that tooth. They think it had a big missing filling or chip or whatever. Now, and I love using positive phrases like just look at them right in the eye and say, I know what the problem is, and the good news is we can fix it. Those things sound really simple, but they're very reassuring. Phrases like, I know what the problem is, and the good news is we can fix it. Patients love to hear things like that, because again, we've been talking about loyalty, trust, confidence. Make them know that you are the dentist for them by saying things like that. So now we explain the core and the crown. We make our financial arrangements. We get them on the books for the core and the crown, and they're excited to get it. And then they come in for their appointment, and we start doing all those things that we talked about earlier to make them know that your dental practice is the best dental practice in the world. We take them back on time. We give the most painless injection ever. We make sure they're completely numb during the treatment. The doctor calls that evening to see how they're doing. All these great things to let them know that they've come to the greatest dental practice of all time. And we start with the chief complaint, and then we do everything else one step at a time, one step at a time. They might be the kind of person that's okay, let's do what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, I want to do it. And 3 months down the road, they've got $20,000 worth of dental treatment, it's all paid for. Or they might be somebody who just isn't ready to get everything done that fast, or they're really dependent on insurance. And the same amount of treatment might take you 3 years on patient B, but it doesn't matter because the key is they're doing it in your practice, not somewhere else, because you didn't scare them away with this big high pressure, $15,000 yes or no treatment plan. It's not about when they get their treatment done. It's about where they get their treatment done. And that where is your practice. Does this make sense? Maybe not, because you might be thinking to yourself, well, that is unethical. You can't let a patient leave your office without telling them they need all this treatment. That's unethical, it's immoral, it's possibly fattening, and it's illegal in 7 states. I mean, yes, you have to tell the patient about all the treatment they need. If you don't do that, you're not doing their job. So I'm going to get to that in 1 second. But first, real quickly, let's talk about financial arrangements. So we're going to make financial arrangements first for the chief complaint only. Financial arrangements, one of the main things that gets in the way of patients saying yes to treatment is money, money, money. They think they can't afford it. So please just keep it simple. Have the best financial options available. Now, I love making financial arrangements for the chief complaint only because they're going to, they should be able to handle that, especially if you use third-party financing. You probably all know that we love Care Credit at the Mato Center, but one of the problems with Care Credit is people don't know how to present it, just like everything else. They talk too much. They say, well, we've got another option. It's a third-party financing company. You got to fill out this form, and then we're going to look at the form and make fun of you, and then you might not get approved, then lose. Or then you talk the patient out of it. The presentation, I don't care if you're using Care Credit or any other finance company, the presentation is simple. Of course, you should be using Care Credit because they're the best. But no matter who you use, let's say the patient needs let's say that the core and the crown is $2,400. And we make it way too complicated. The way to do it is so easy. You just look them right in the eye and say, of course you're going to talk about cash, check, credit card. If I don't want to do any of those, say we've got another great option for you. We can do 12 months interest-free. That'll be just $200 a month for the next 12 months. Is that something you'd like to take advantage of? And then just be quiet. Don't say anything else. It's so simple. I've seen people blow this presentation so many times because we get too complicated. We go into too many details. Just look them right in the eye. We've got a great option for you. We can do 12 months, interest-free. That'll be just $200 a month. Is that something you'd like to take advantage of? Now, ask your Care Credit rep for this form. This is their payment form, and they can do this for you. It's the treatment payment options form. And again, it puts everything in black and white. It's so simple. It says, here's how much your treatment's going to be. I'm trying to point there, but I keep vanishing. Which do you choose? Cash, check, credit card, or financing. Then at the bottom, it gives all your financing options. It tells what the monthly payments are. It's simple to understand. It puts it in black and white. You can print this out, review it with the patient, and let them know exactly what their financing options are. It's see, Trish, you love using it. Thank you. Isn't it great? If you're not using this, please tell your Care Credit rep to get you this form. It's so simple. It's so easy. Now, every now and then when I'm lecturing, I talk about how to present financing, and I go into much more detail than we're doing tonight, because I do like an hour on financial presentation, and somebody will raise their hand and say, well, we would never do in-house financing unless a patient gets turned down by Care Credit. It's like, no, that's the last patient you want to do. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. We are not obligated to treat patients who can't afford our dentistry. We're not obligated to do it unless the patient's in pain or bleeding or swelling. Don't do treatment that patients can't pay for, because you will get screwed, especially if Care Credit tells you not to extend the credit. So that's just a little aside. It's getting close to 9 o'clock here on the East Coast, so we better talk about the 90-second, $15,000 treatment plan presentation, because this is kind of the crux of the whole thing. Now, if you've been following and paying attention, you know that we do the talk-over technique. We use plain English during the talk-over technique, so the patient knows there's a lot going on. Then we address the chief complaint first. We get that appointed. We get it financed. But as I said before, you've got to present the entire treatment. You can't just let them leave not knowing that they need stuff. So here's how you do it. Once you take care of that step with the chief complaint, say something like, what's our patient's name? We'll say, I'm looking at our list, Lynn, because you said you didn't know it included commercials. So Lynn, you're going to be the patient. Say, Lynn. Now, as you could probably tell during your examination, there are a lot of other areas in your mouth that we're concerned about. Concern's a great word. It just shows you really care, and you are concerned. I hope you're concerned. If you're not concerned, you're in the wrong profession. So Lynn, there are a lot of other areas in your mouth that we're concerned about. As you could probably tell during your examination, you have 3 other teeth that also have large fillings with chips and cracks and decaying bacteria underneath, and we really need to get to those as soon as possible. But remember, we talked about your gums, and we probably told you that more adults lose their teeth due to gum disease than anything else. When we were doing the examination of your gums, you heard some 5s and 6s in the letter B. There are some areas of inflammation and infection in your gums, and I'm really concerned that if we don't treat them, they will get worse. So as soon as we take care of this tooth on the upper right that we talked about, we already have you on the schedule for it, when it's in a nice, solid, long-lasting temporary crown, the very next step is to have you see Becky, our fantastic hygienist, for a series of 4 appointments to make sure that your gums get healthy again. And we're going to talk to you about exactly what that entails. So that's the next step after we get this tooth in the temporary crown. Then you've got 3 other teeth that are also going to need cores and crowns. You probably heard that during the exam. Now, as you know, also, you've got a missing tooth on the lower left, and you've got a missing tooth on the lower right. And unfortunately, we can already see that your teeth are starting to shift and drift together, and that affects your bite. And that's something that's really important to take care of. The good news is, with today's dental implant technology, it's almost like growing new teeth. It'll be a fantastic way to replace those missing teeth. And then you said that you didn't like the way your smile looked. You thought those teeth were a little crooked and a little bit yellow. we can do some cosmetic dentistry and give you a Hollywood smile. So these are all things that are in your near future. But first, let's just take care of this tooth on the upper right, and then we'll do everything else next at a pace that's comfortable for you. We'll explain the financing and the cost each step as we go along, and we'll get you scheduled. And before long, you're going to have a brand new mouth. So boom, that might have been 120 seconds. Okay, so I exaggerated a little bit. That might have been 120 seconds. But what was that treatment plan? It was 4 quads of scaling and root planing, 4 cores and crowns, 2 implants, abutments, crowns, 8 veneers, easily a probably $20,000 treatment plan, without getting the big yes or no answer all at once, without going against human nature, without throwing the piece of paper in front of them like they teach you at these treatment plan presentation courses and say, is this the kind of treatment you want? Yes or no, you have to commit today. Don't do it. Work with human nature. Do the 90-second, $15,000 treatment plan presentation, and then work at a pace that's comfortable for the patient. Because the most important, what's that doing up there? No shirt, no shoes, no dice. That's from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I think I left that in from a previous presentation. That's not the most important lesson. The most important lesson is, read this for a second and see if you can fill in the blanks. The most important lesson is, it's not when your patient gets their treatment done, it's where your patient gets your treatment done. So work with human nature. I'm telling you, this is the lesson that I learned the hard way in my practice. But once I figured it out, and once I taught the entire team this method, our case presentation went crazy. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody got everything done all at once. And that's going against this principle. When we stop worrying about that, when we stop worrying about trying to get patients to say yes to huge amount of treatments all at once, and concentrated on making them comfortable in our practice, patients stayed, and got their treatment done. Again, I don't care if it took them 6 weeks or it took them 3 years, because I knew that when they were ready, my handpiece was going to be the one grinding away on their teeth, and not that dentist down the street, because I scared them away with a big treatment plan presentation. So that's pretty much all of the obvious secrets, the treatment plan presentation. I hope this was a meaningful evening for you. We've got another webinar planned. I don't think we have a date for it yet, but it's going to be called 10 surefire ways to generate referrals without begging, pleading, or sounding desperate. Jeez, I mean, everybody loves referred patients, but then I see these like programs and things that Practices Institute where it makes you sound like an idiot. You're like begging the patient. I heard a dentist teach this. They said, actually, we tell every single one of our patients that in order to stay in our practice, they have to refer 3 other patients of equal or greater value. I actually heard a dentist say, how do you know what equal, that's for, in order to stay in the practice, and then I've got to know how valuable they are? That was nuts. So we don't like these referral programs because they make us sound like we're desperate. So I'm going to talk about 10 surefire ways to generate referrals without begging, pleading, or sounding desperate. Again, we'd love to have you check out our Quick Start program. It's kind of like coaching light. It's just a 2-month commitment. It's very inexpensive, and we'll concentrate on 2 or 3 main areas where your practice needs help. It's a good way to dip your toe in the water and really kind of pick back up after the whole pandemic nightmare that we had. So many people are in disarray. So many practices are unsure of where to go. So let's just work together for 2 months. We'll find some areas where your practice really needs help. You work with me and a great member of our coaching team and get things significantly improved. And again, as I said, full disclosure, my hope is that you stay on and become a full coaching client, but we're not going to only give you a little bit and say to get the rest, you need to stay with us. That's not the way we work. We're going to show how valuable it is to work with us. So you're going to want to stay. So that's matto.com/quickstart. Just go to matto.com, kind of disappearing there, matto.com/quickstart. We might have time for a couple questions. I love the orientation, but missed the first part. Oh, can you send a recording? I'm pretty sure that we are recording this, and that if you're on this webinar tonight, or if you registered, you're going to get a link, and we'll keep it up for a week. So if you missed something, if you want to review it with your team, if you fell asleep, if you had to go make dinner for whatever reason, we are going to send you a link so you can watch the recording. So again, oh, credits. Sylvia always tells me that I never tell people how to get credit. So I'm going to do it this time. If you register through CE Zoom, log in, scroll down to the course, and the code is yes. And then I believe you have to take the survey, and then you can get your CE certificate where it says Records and Manage CE. So that's how you do it with CE Zoom. Your code is yes. If you did it through the Maddow Center, then we're going to send you a link to access your CE certificate, short form to complete, and your certificate will be emailed to you. Oh, some nice comments. That's so nice. People are thanking me for a good presentation. I love that. That really makes me feel good. So speaking of making me feel good, I just want to make you feel good by saying it's a Wednesday night here on the East Coast. This is about 9 o'clock. Maybe where you are, it's 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 6 o'clock, but whatever time it is, I know that you didn't have to be here with me tonight. You probably could have been doing things that maybe were more fun. Maybe you had a tough day treating patients and you thought, oh, shoot, the last thing I want to do is attend a webinar tonight, but I might as well do it because hopefully it'll help me improve my treatment plan percentage. And I hope it did. It was really, really fun being with you. I'll say it once again. I really, really appreciate that you chose to take the time out of your evening to spend it with me. If you want to send me an email, please do. My email address is rich, R-I-C, I'm sorry I don't have it up there on the panel, but it's rich, R-I-C-H, at Maddow, MADOW.com. I answer all of my emails, rich, R-I-C-H, at MADOW.com. Oh, I love that comment. I've been to the institutes and I really like this presentation. Thank you so much. I love that. That's funny. I'll just show this again. If you want to check out our Quick Start program, just go to maddow.com/quick start. So I'm Dr. Richard Maddow, co-founder of the Maddow Center for Dental Practice Success. And again, I had fun. I hope you had fun. And I truly, truly, sincerely appreciate that you chose to spend time with me tonight. So thanks so much. Good night, everyone. And I hope to see you soon, especially when live meetings start again. Oh man, I want to come see you in person. So let's hope that that's going to be happening really soon. I've got a bunch on my calendar. I hope one is in your town. So thanks so much, everyone. Good night.